This is A New Angle, a show about cool people doing awesome things in and around Montana. I'm your host, Justin Angle. This show is supported by First Security Bank, Blackfoot Communications, and the University of Montana College of Business. Hey folks, welcome back, and thanks for tuning in. Today we bring you part 2 of my conversation with Donnie Wetzel Jr., Tribal Liaison for the Montana Department of Labor and Industry. Donnie is also the founder of Identity, Inc., which houses the Montana Indian Athletic Hall of Fame.
So I wanted to bring light. I wanted to bring something that the world can, like I say, lift the lid up and they look in and they see this beauty of Indian country that often isn't covered.
We pick it up with a conversation about how wisdom can transfer across cultures. How do you think about that transfer of both wisdom and vice across cultures as you see it?
It's like when you get a new toy or a new direction or a new approach, or say the horse comes into our lands when we didn't have the horse. Mm-hmm. You have to adapt if you're smart. What if they said, we don't want the horse, so get it out of here? That'd be like some of the technologies, let's say, or some of the educational pieces that have come. So it's moving in coexistence, and there is a reality around that. But always understand, that's where I made those fundamentals. First and foremost, understand who you are and what you are through your values in the land that you live on.
We talked about sport and the central component of discipline and teamwork and sacrificing a little bit of the self for the collective. How do you make that move from those lessons into finding that fourth component of your philosophy, helping people find a place where they can get a foothold to make a contribution?
This ties into what we're trying to do in my film, The Undefeated.
Yes.
It's this concept or this push on our tribal people that you were conquered, or that you were, our people have to believe in themselves to be able to do that. You have to believe that I can come in here and fit in. I can help this process, but I got to come in confidently and help. Mm-hmm. Because if I'm sitting there working with kids and I'm like, what do you think about this? What's a solution you would have? Well, geez, I do this. And so then say I get them to speak in front of an audience and they're nervous. I will say, you weren't nervous when you went on that basketball court at the tournament, were you?
Right.
Well, no. And I said, well, you should be just as confident walking out here, because you're right. You worked at this. Just walk out there just the same. And so that type of, they can always relate to that because we have a lot of champions. So you have to have confidence. You have to reconnect. You have to understand you're undefeated. And the whole term of that film is because I would flip the script on what has been pressed on our Indian people with our youth. For the last 20 years, I've said, you're the only ones who are still on your Indigenous lands. And Indigenous just means you're native to that land, that mm-hmm. world. And I said, only 2% can say that. You're the only one who still has your language and culture. A lot of people left that across that ocean. I said, so don't act like that. We are not conquered because we have our treaties. We got all this stuff. All you got to do is go find it. It's there. So understand you're undefeated. You're not a beaten people. You're it. And you got to have confidence in yourself to walk this world like you do when you walk out on that state title championship floor or that cross country meet, So that kind of is where we got to believe. And there's more and more, especially our young people, that are believing. You got students that are doing things. We have so much knowledge around our plants and our everything around it that can help in medicine. We have all of this stuff sitting here in this continent that people will rather look over and say Eastern philosophies like yoga, feng shui, all these different kind of herbs that they use. We have all that here, but they rarely tap into it. And I don't know if it's the conscience of America, but we have a lot of that knowledge. And as we heal and our culture revitalizes, we're going to have more youth sharing that. And that's where we start to help each other.
Yeah, sometimes there's just an inability to see what's right in front of you.
Yeah.
Right? Like we'll draw from, there's this great wise tradition in Tibet that we need to understand more of, and it's, ancient and, exotic in a way, whereas if you just listen to the people that you're currently living in space with, you might learn something.
And that's true on the native side.
Yeah.
I'll be sitting around with my friends and they'll be like, man, did you see the Maori tribe when they're doing that dance? And I'm like, I wish someone came and did that with me if I was getting married. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, you have that right here. What are you talking about? So it is this, again, it's this belief that, I think they took a hard shot at us, but we're still here and we're getting stronger and we're reconnecting to that belief system that we need to.
Talk more about the film. What is the project? How did it come to be? And when will it make contact with audiences?
So I think the film, again, I did some pretty wild and crazy things when I was working in schools. Mm-hmm. And I used coaching philosophies with every student that I could. And it was funny. I didn't get a lot of the athletes when I did youth leadership. I didn't get a lot of them around, but I wouldn't have been around it. So I already understood that. And so I just use coaching philosophies. And I think in education, you need to teach teachers coaching philosophies, because a coach can look at a kid and find that one spark, and then they'll work with that spark to mold them into becoming a team member. You're really good at this, and he's good at that, and that's cool. We don't do that in education. You all got to be here, So right. I was using those type of philosophies because I don't have a degree in education. I was in IT, and then I got into PR and health promotion. And so I was kind of not, I would say, indoctrinated into a teaching system. So a lot of the teachers, and I didn't want to offend anyone, but I said, you just got to be, you can reach that kid by this way. Can't you see that? Mm-hmm. And they would be working with 20 kids in the same way. And so I think I took a lot and tried to create things in our school systems that the system rejected. I brought in culture. We were doing, and it wasn't just me, we got the elders. We changed a whole system where they're lighting smudge before they start the school. And that's just sweetgrass or whatever the tribe does. That cleans the air. Right. Cleans your senses. It centers you. And discipline dropped dramatically when before they used 10, 12 different approaches to drop discipline. So all of these different things that we did, I wanted to get the kids to understand who they were. And, our schools are in the bottom 5% in Indian country. And we dumped a lot of money. So I was seeing that, well, God, that ain't catching. So
right. Money's maybe
culture.
Not the solution.
Yeah. So we did all that stuff, and we did some amazing things, and it kind of broke my heart that 2-3 years out, it fell. Or it's like pulling a rubber band out 5-10 feet, and you're out here for a while, and then you let go, and it goes back to what it's always been. Yeah. So I was sitting here frustrated, and then when I left that world, because I don't like that. I don't like things didn't work the way, but we did impact a lot. So then I shifted back to basketball. I shifted back to sports. And I had a guy that I did a podcast with years ago out of New York call me, and he was intrigued with what I was telling him about natives and athletes and sports and the Warriors and how good we are. And so he goes, I want to kind of do a film. And I said, all right. And I sometimes will get people that will hit me up. My dad used it too. And, people, they got a great heart and great ideas, but I will sense exploitation like nothing else. Mm-hmm. And this young man used his entire savings and came out, and I said, okay, well, I'd like to follow a few of our youth. I'd like to follow this stuff. I'd like to tie in culture. I'd like to talk about this warrior spirit and how sports has held the ground for our culture to heal. It's the only place where the most prideful. It doesn't matter what religion or if you're traditional, you all go to the game. Doesn't matter if you're on the council and you hate each other, you all go to the game and cheer our youth. And there's a great power there. And so then working with him, he came out and hit right what I was explaining for him to hit. And then we understood that we're in the same kind of mindset here. And again, he really was committed, and he really started to understand some stuff, because I'm not saying anything, but I sometimes have a lot of ideas. I just can't do them all. And I need to find, say, if someone pops in and says, I want to do that, they better have the same level of energy as me, or I'll say, well, no, we'll work on that later, or whatever. He had the same energy. And so we started following some of our athletes. And, you know, I'm a pretty traditional Blackfeet member. And I put these out in prayers and smoked a pipe and did different things, that this all goes how it should go. Mm-hmm. And that we really don't control it. We just want the best to come from it.
Yeah.
And it just started to hit like that, you know, and he ran into Sydney Littlelight, who I knew Sydney since she was 5, you know, and she was a national champion for Rocky.
This is the young runner.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the other one is Virgil McCormick, is my nephew. Okay. His mother's my first cousin. And he lives down in Crow and Cheyenne. So he's Crow, Cheyenne, and Blackfeet. Mm-hmm. And I've been around that family. I've watched him, very successful. His sister is Shyla McCormick, I think top 3 scorer in women's basketball history for the state of Montana.
Wow.
MHSA. And so those kids are really tough. And he just won the 5th Ultimate Warrior, which is horseback, canoe, and run. They do like 5 miles on each of them.
Wow.
Or something. He just won his 5th in a row. So I said, track him down, because I knew what he was about. Sydney just fell into our lap. We picked up a couple others, and what I've learned in documentaries is some of that will change. You know, some will stick, some won't. So we closed out some of that. We started to tie in this philosophy around the warrior spirit. And then you start to realize that I'm big on narrative. And a lot of the narrative of Indian country out there is almost in a negative fashion,
sure,
a trauma-driven fashion.
Yeah.
And I've been there, you know. So people say, you don't cover trauma enough. Yeah, I do. I've been there. Have you ever walked into a school when a young man took his life the next day and there are zombies walking around? And I'm like, you kids, come over here. You're just trying your best to. So anybody want to come at me like that? You know, I mean, I have some experience around there. So I wanted to bring light. I wanted to bring something that the world can, like I say, you know, lift the lid up and they look in and they see this beauty of Indian country that often isn't covered.
There's a moment in the trailer where you say something to the tune of, let's shift generational trauma to generational resilience. Yeah. Talk about that for a moment.
It's through those experiences.
Yeah.
You know, I think I've probably sat with probably 50, 60 people with suicidal ideation. You know, and I'm an assist trainer. I had the most assist trainings in the state of Montana, which is applied suicide intervention skills training. Wow. I trained on that because it gives you tools to deal with it. When you ask the question, someone says, yeah, I want to kill myself. It gives you tools to walk them out of that, to see the light. So like I was in that type of world, you know, and what usually pulled them out of that is if I tied them to something that they loved, or if I handed them, it didn't matter who they were, tribal or not, had them a braid of sweetgrass, said, you know what this is? You know, so when people are thinking in that manner, sometimes you just got to throw a wrench in their thought.
Right, knock them out of it.
And remind them that, hey, you know, no, we can do some things here. But we can't, I mean, that's a long conversation, but like, so I had been around that, and a lot of the things that work, I never lost anybody. You know, I mean, I went to their house. I went and met them in their car. I found out where they were at 4 a.m, you know, that kind of stuff. And it was usually reminding them who they are. Do you know who you are? Do you know who your relatives are? I know the ones now are pretty dysfunctional, but do you know who your great-great-grandparents were? We got to go back there. You got to remember this stuff. And so it was kind of like the resiliency, and everyone has a different thought on resiliency, but it just means you're gritty and you can get through anything, and our tribes can get through absolutely anything. So I wanted to remind them of that. And so a lot of my work, I have a resiliency movement going on. So I present now. And I've done only 3 of those presentations because I get after it. And I will have people come and say, you got to cover, Donnie, the historical trauma. I said, there's like 7, 8 of you covering that. Can I just be the guy that talks about historical resiliency?
Yeah.
That we're still battling and we're still got it all?
Yeah, you can reframe it.
Yeah. And so that's kind of where it came from. And yeah, he just captured that. That's kind of where that came from. We need to look at that we're undefeated. We got the treaties. We weren't conquered. There's all these things that society has tried to make us think. The narrative is always the boarding school, or the narrative is always MMIP, which is true. But there hasn't been a lot about the narrative that we get out there and win titles. Browning just won their 23rd cross-country title.
Yeah.
That's like in the top 5 in the nation. Well, let's talk about that, that we got all this amazing stuff. And boy, everybody walks with their head held high when you go there.
We'll be back to my conversation with Donnie Wetzel Jr. after this short break. A New Angle is proudly presented by First Security Bank, Blackfoot Communications, and the University of Montana College of Business. This show does not happen without these pillars of our community, and I'm so grateful for their support and encouragement. And speaking of support, have you checked out our new website yet? anewanglepodcast.com. There you can support our show directly with a variety of subscription options. Subscribers get access to bonus episodes, additional segments, writings, and other benefits. So check it out at anewanglepodcast.com.
This is John Twiggs with Montana PBS, and you're listening to A New Angle.
Welcome back to A New Angle. I'm speaking with Donnie Wetzel Jr. about his vision to build positive energy and resilience among tribal youth. Donnie, I think we share just this almost idealistic commitment to the virtues of sport and what it could do for an individual, what it can do for a team, a community, all these things. Yet sport is filled with such contradiction, something I really struggle with. Here at the university, are these really student athletes? I mean, I think of Montana, we're still in a bit of a sweet spot, but at larger universities, it's hard to think of these kids like a Cooper Flagg at Duke, who reportedly made $40 million in name, image, and likeness revenue last year. Is that really a student athlete? We've got issues of how do we ensure fairness in a world where conceptions of gender and sex are changing, categories are changing. Sports gambling, all these other big threats to the integrity of sport. Do you think about those? Are those just noise and you're focused on what sports can do at a local level? How do you kind of manage some of those tensions in your brain?
I mean, I kind of understood back in the day when they would say an athlete would bring millions to the, like with the national team of the Grizz back in '96 and stuff. You do start to see money coming in, and you see new buildings coming up, and a lot of that comes from there. But you probably got a scholarship. You get a scholarship, pays for your education. That's all we had back then. And I understood, but it's very similar to when we started to have conversations, and I would say 01, 02 with creating an elder council. Back then, those elders said, keep money out of everything. Keep it out.
That's smart.
It's going to ruin it.
Yeah.
And so then as time has changed, there's been a shift, because I think you have to in this world. And it's become so money driven that, you still got to pay for food. So we would used to pay we'd get some wood, some food. We were even trying to systemize that in some kind of support systems for, say, someone coming out of addiction that you can use. We'll get an elder and then we'd pay the elder in wood. Or So it's like, it reminds me of that. I think it's ruining a lot, you know, because I look at Calvin Sampson and the Houston Cougars.
Mm-hmm.
They were old school. They were loyal to that college and to that team, to each other. And in comes, you know, I think that one young man got $4 million.
Yeah.
And he didn't do so good in there, but he closed it down in the end. And to me, that was a fight, both of the way of the world coming now, and it made me mad because money won. In Houston, those boys ain't going to be going anywhere. I don't even know if any of them were even drafted.
Probably not.
You know,
Yeah.
so, but then I look at the NBA finals. You had two teams in those big three, the big this, that. You had two teams. And to me, I get goosebumps there. That was the best series
Yeah, it was amazing.
I've seen forever.
Yeah, and particularly both teams had it in so many
Yeah.
dimensions. But like the Oklahoma City team, these young guys, they
Oh,
do these
man.
press conferences together. Like they were a
They
team.
laugh. And then there is a shift that, you know, the AAU ball.
Yeah.
I'm seeing more and more people saying you got to go back to fundamentals. That's what I did coaching, you know, her and my younger son.
Donnie's referring to his daughter,
Yeah, my
Navia, who's
daughter,
in here
so-
in the studio with us.
But like going back to those fundamentals, you're starting to see like a little bit of a wave
Yeah.
starting over on
I think
the
people are
side.
seeing that the system's broken. They don't
Yeah.
necessarily know how to fix it, but they're pushing back against that monetary interest.
So, I mean, I always have hope, but it is frustrating.
Yeah.
You know, when I got a group of youth that, you know, go and get whipped by 10 kids that are 6 foot in 7th grade. And my guys I'm just teaching them the fundamentals, and you get beat by 40. And you're like,
That's hard.
what good is that doing to that good team too? You know, I mean, so like you got to have money. They don't got no. There's kids around here that could tear it up, but they don't have money to go travel.
Yeah, and
I
to get
mean-
the private coaching or the the club teams and all that other sort of, we call it the youth sports industrial complex on this show.
Oh yeah. And that's where I find peace and serenity on the reservation.
Yeah.
I go insane because I used to ball here. I'd be at Bonner Park every weekend back in the day. You know, we lived in Corvallis. We'd come up and ball.
Sure.
And the old hoops outside of Miller, we'd be balling there. And I rarely see any balling happening on outside courts. But I'll get my fix and go to the res, and they're balling.
That's happening.
But there's still, you know, you still got I think they're behind a little bit because, parent involvement has become a little extreme.
Yes.
And I was on the Montana High School Association board, and you had parents telling refs, you know, all of this madness and fighting refs or yelling at refs. And I always said if a parent gets teed up or, you know, kicked out of the gym, for them to come back, they should go ref junior high ball.
They should have to ref again themselves.
You know, I think
Yeah.
people don't know until they're in it, and they're like,
yeah.
okay, this is hard.
Right.
But like, I don't know. I think like there's still a purity in some of our reservation schools that I don't see it too much. I mean, it's getting better. Everyone goes to a gym. You know, well, is the gym open? No, but there's an outside court
There's
sitting
a
right
hoop
over there.
Yeah.
And so like that kind of stuff, I think that purity of just balling and not being on a team. All these team camps drive me nuts.
Yeah, and that beauty of like pickup ball, figuring it out, making up your own rules, enforcing those rules.
Yes.
I remember in pickup basketball, there's something beautiful about defense calling the fouls, right? There's that requires of people a certain integrity, but it also is a self-policing mechanism. There's just a beauty in that, and I think that's being lost a little bit.
Totally.
Yeah. So, Donnie, we've covered so much ground in this conversation. I so appreciate you sharing all of your insights. Last question. You seem so hopeful and positive in your vision Yet you've worked in some dark places on some really hard topics and with people in crisis. How do you stay hopeful? How do you keep resilience alive in yourself?
I have a little kind of a trick I do. If I start to feel a certain way, I go back to a heavy situation. Like I go back to, say, my son in that NICU unit, and I can't do nothing. And he's got to fight for his life there, and I'm sitting there. And I look around now, it doesn't matter what I'm involved in. Nothing ever hits at those levels. And I got through it then. And so like I'll always think that, well, this ain't that bad. We just got to talk. We just got to talk, or I'm going to light that smudge. In the cultural side, once I started to really learn that more tools came to me. And just, it's hard because we're never, in our way, our whole entire goal is to become the best version of us that we can, and then we pass the other side. And so like there's teachings that help me get through. And my daughter, my family knows if I'm sitting a certain way, I'll light that smudge and it'll center me. Or there's philosophies and things that I do now, but if it's too heavy, I will go to those heavy places that were really heavy and think, this is nothing. There isn't a life on the line. There isn't, we'll get through this. We'll be fine. You got to live in the now too. I think like, I'll always kind of lean towards this, living in the now. Like I'm sitting here talking with you. I just met you and we're having an amazing conversation.
Here we are.
And my daughter's here, Kelly's here. And what's better than this at this moment? I think like living in the now is something that our phones may take away, and, we're probably Gen X here. We didn't have that. And we were at those concerts, not holding our phone to record it. We were at the concerts. And so like that type of stuff too that's hard. I've been working on that for 2 years. Live in the moment.
Yeah, it's a lifetime project.
Yeah. But those things help me.
Donnie, if people want to learn more about Identity Inc., Undefeated Film, where would you direct them?
Our website, it's going to be really nice. I got 3 pages to it.
Under construction.
It got hacked. But no, it's there, identityincmt.org.
Okay.
So it's the incmt.org.
Yeah. And folks should check out the trailer for the film.
The trailer's there. That can also be, we have a Facebook page on the trailer, the Undefeated Film. So we might be looking, we got some hiccups there. So we don't know. We just kind of sat back, said it'll be done when it's done. We're not kind of going to force anything. So, and that's got some stuff on YouTube as well, but you can find it all on identityincmt.org. There's links there.
Super. Well, Donnie Wetzel Jr., so grateful for this moment in time to share, and I hope this is the first of many conversations. Thank you for being here today.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to A New Angle. If you like what we do and want to support us directly, please consider a subscription at anewanglepodcast.com. A New Angle is recorded at Studio 49, a generous gift from UM alums Michelle and Lauren Hansen. Our presenting sponsors are First Security Bank, Blackfoot Communications, and the University of Montana College of Business. Keely Larson is our producer. Libby Riddle is our production assistant. VTO, Jeff Ament, and John Wicks made our music, and Jeff Meese is our master of all things sound. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time.